Welcome into Red River North, right here on Ghost Channel. Randy Heights, Dave Myrick, 107.7 The Franchise. Zach Sim does something for Texas. I don't know. How you doing tonight, Zach?
What's going on, y'all? How you doing?
Good. How are you, man?
Doing good.
Good, brother. Well, I don't know if you boys heard, we got a baseball series coming up in Norman, Oklahoma, and Texas. Texas, they were kind of sparkling there for a couple weeks, ranked number one. They were spanked by Arkansas and Florida back-to-back. They come in scuffling. Oklahoma just swept at Kentucky. Got a couple of ball clubs kind of heading the wrong direction of how you want to be playing this time of year, Zach. But I'm going to start with you first, buddy. What do you think about your beloved Horns? How do you see this series shaking out?
I mean, at the end of the day, they need one win. So, don't expend too much energy. Get one win and head to Hoover, because one win gets them at least a share of the SEC regular season title. And, depending on what happens between Arkansas and Tennessee, might get them the number one overall seed in general for the Hoover tournament. And I think, if you look at the historical stats, they've already locked up a top 8. So I think it's just about kind of getting things right before the tournament, the real tournament begins. But no, I think this is it's a good club to play against because there's some emotion there, right? It's two rivals. And after the last couple of weekends where they've been battling flu and just a whole slew of things, getting a guy like Max Ballou back potentially, and then again playing against a rival, that seems to bring the best out of teams. So it's kind of fortunate timing, I think, for the Horns.
Yeah, as we're doing this, Toby Rowland, that does play-by-play for Oklahoma, just sent out a tweet that Dayton Taki, Oklahoma's first baseman, is listed as questionable for this series. It'd be a big boon to get back in that 1 through 9, Zach. I think he's got 6 home runs on the season. Was working on a 4-for-4 night when he got hurt. But, Randy, you know as well as I do, this 1 through 9 has struggled this year to hit with guys in scoring position. If Taki can at least pinch hit a couple of games, that's very big for this club.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you look at it, and we talked about it earlier this week, Dave. I mean, you mentioned Toby tweeting that out, that he's questionable, tweeted out images on Saturday and Sunday of Dayton Taki no longer in a walking boot. He had a bat in his hand, taking some swings on Saturday, not like in the cage, but at least standing there. And so I'm a little surprised by that. There's a part of me that I'll be surprised if you see prolonged this weekend. I think you're probably right. Maybe more a couple of pinch hits here and there, just trying to get his timing down. Because I think if you're Oklahoma, and Zach, to kind of what you were talking about, Texas, Oklahoma's in a different spot, but I do feel like they're in the field of 64. Oh, yeah. That it's about getting Dayton Taki healthy and getting this lineup right. And so I think they kind of want to get him a few at-bats this weekend and try to get his timing down. And then next week at Hoover on Tuesday, because Oklahoma's pretty much, I think, locked into having to play on that opening day of the tournament, have Dayton Taki in that lineup ready to go, because it's going to be very interesting. You see this offense much different when Dayton Taki's in that lineup as opposed to when he's not.
Yeah, guys, you both make interesting points. Zach, I kind of like what you said about getting back to playing good baseball, right? Texas knows where they're at. They know they're in the tournament. Just get back in the groove. Oklahoma, to sleep really soundly, I would still like to see that club get at least one win against Texas. And then whatever happens in Hoover happens. I know a lot of people, as of right now, I've seen some people flirt 2 and 3 seeds. I think out in Clemson for one, down in Fort Worth for another. But you just want to get the sense as you head towards the end of the season that you're playing your best baseball. Oklahoma coming off getting swept, not feeling that, Randy. And I think that coming into the year, we all thought, right, Oklahoma's pitching staff had to be elite. They had to carry this ball club. This feels weird to say because where they're at is due to pitching, but outside of Kyson Witherspoon, they have not lived up to expectations. And that's really weird to say, but because this 1 through 9 was known to be the struggle. But the facts are behind Kyson, Malachi, and Cade have been up and down, and so is the defense.
No, I think you're right. And Zach, you followed baseball long enough. I think a lot of this pitching struggle, when you go to it and look at it, I think you can trace it back to the offense. You start seeing these guys where they're going, I've got to be perfect. I've got to make this pitch. I can't give up 3, 4 runs, or we may not get back in this game. And that's not all an excuse. They still got to make pitches.
Sure.
But that's where I do give some of the pass to Cade Crossland and to Malachi Witherspoon, because we've talked about it time and time again. When Malachi has something go wrong behind him, he starts panicking. And I think that's because he knows, man, if we give up a 3 spot here, I can only do so much to keep us in this game. I don't know if my offense can get back in. And that's where I think you need to see a Dayton Taki back in. I know I keep going back to it, but not only at the plate, but defensively at first base. Hamlin, I think, has done an admirable job filling in the last few games. But there's been a couple of plays defensively at first base where you're just going, yeah, that's something that Dayton makes, and they probably get out of the inning. So, all that being said, that offense for Oklahoma, I think, makes this pitching staff even better.
Yeah, no doubt. With the struggles 1 through 9, shaky behind Kyson this year, just too inconsistent to be really a top 10 club. But Zach, speaking of pitching, I mean, I've watched Riojas the last few Fridays. Started, I think, against A&M, did fairly well, but at Arkansas and then Florida, different story. I mean, what do you think about his performance so far? And do you think that's going to be the first guy trotted out tomorrow?
I actually don't think Ruger will be the first guy out tomorrow to face Kyson. I think they're going to try to line things up so that they get really, like I said, they get ready for regional play, right? So what you'll probably see is I don't know this for a fact, but I wouldn't bet against Grayson Saunier or someone a little different getting the start on Thursday for the Horns. Then they roll out Ruger on Friday, and then you see Luke Harrison on Saturday. And again, that's keeping them in those matchups as they go into Hoover and then the regional. The thing about Ruger, he had a just horrific time against Arkansas. And when I look at the performance, he wasn't able to land his fastball. And so they just sat on the breaking ball. Well, he comes back. And the other thing about Arkansas, that was his 3rd time pitching in like 11 days. I mean, there was a lot going on there as he moved back into that full-time role. And then against Florida, he had the flu the day before. So, he was not at 100%. People don't like to make excuses, but even the coaching staff is like, hey, we've got to give this guy a pass. I mean, he was not mentally and physically there. And so you could kind of see from the body language, he wasn't being himself. And he's a guy that, kind of like what you were talking about, Malachi, he really feeds off that energy. He feeds off that confidence. And if it's not going right, it really affects his performance. So I do think, perversely as well, like, do you really want your ace to go up against Kyson on Thursday, right? Like, if you know that Kyson's probably going to get the best of your offense, okay, well, ship the first game. We'll go win the second 2, win the outright title, and call it a weekend, right? I mean, it's just it gets into that strategy as well of you don't want to throw a game away, but if you feel like you have a better chance to win the series by moving them back, you do.
And Zach, that's probably an advantage right now for Texas with doing stuff like that with him in their rotation, because the fact they know they're not playing on the first 2 days of the tournament. Yeah. They're not starting until Thursday. So Oklahoma's got to go out and do everything they can because, they want to use Kyson if they win a game probably on Wednesday. So they've got to throw him tomorrow to have the right rest and everything. And I get it. I mean, that's where these series in the last weekend, I think you're going to see a lot of funny things across the SEC for teams that know they got a day 1 bye, they got a 2-day bye, or they're playing in day 1, because everyone's going to be going at it different because they're all playing for different things. But at the same time, probably 13 of these teams are playing to stay in that field of 64.
Yeah. Well, even LSU, they went to BA or to be announced on Thursday. And they're going to roll with their normal guys, push back a day, very much like Texas. So, yeah, you're definitely going to see a lot of irregular starts for folks and maybe them giving guys a second chance that they've seen earlier, a guy that they're trying to work into that 4 spot for sure.
That's why tomorrow night's matchup to me is so vital for Oklahoma, because the teams you're talking about, like LSU and Texas, they know where they're at. They know they're in the tournament. I feel safe in assuming Oklahoma is, but you start seeing projections of maybe a 3 seed right now. That doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room if you happen to go out and get swept by Texas, one and done in Hoover. I wouldn't like leaving that up in the committee's hands. When there was a big fiasco year before last, Oklahoma gets in, Kansas State doesn't. A lot of controversy about that. I wouldn't feel good if I was Oklahoma going winless down the stretch. That's why tomorrow night, going with Kyson Witherspoon, regardless who Texas throws, they have to get that win at home.
I agree. And Zach, I mean, I understand that, but I think it as well, jumping into the SEC, Texas this year and Oklahoma for the first time. When you look at the history of SEC, Oklahoma's at 13 wins. I mean, that before the conference expanded, that is a lock-in 60 berth in the 64. That's why I'm like, I think we all get so focused on what used to be and what happened in the Big 12. We're not talking about the power conference of the Big 12 and a Kansas State getting left out. We're talking about a 13-win team in
Well,
the
I'm going off
SEC.
what Mike Rooney said, 15-16 to get in the tournament. So
I think he's also looking at it wrong because it's been 13 wins. Zach, I mean, you've done the research, I'm sure. When you look at it, 13 wins get you in the tournament in the SEC before it expanded to 16. I don't think there's a big issue on any of these teams that are at the 13-win mark because some of those Pac-12 spots got to go somewhere.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't feel good about Oklahoma getting in. I'm saying from their perspective, if you want to sleep really sound, don't get swept by Texas. Don't go one and done in Hoover. You got to win one against the Longhorns at least.
Yeah, I mean, historically, 13 wins is kind of seen as the bare minimum, right? If you look at last year, 2024, I'm looking here, and there's there's 4 teams that all made it as a 2 seed with a 13-17 record. And they had more losses in the regular season than Oklahoma did. I understand your point, Dave, there around like you don't want the recency bias, right?
Sure.
These committee members are not watching all the baseball we are. They're not paying attention throughout the season, and they go see an 0-5, 1-5 or 0-6, and all of a sudden light bulbs go, oh, this is not pretty, right? At the same time, they've got an RPI of 26, the strength of schedule of 26. They got 8 quadrant 1 wins. I think, if they get one game, they're an absolute lock.
Yes, agreed.
Even without a game, I think they could still very well get in there as a 3 seed for sure. I mean, that's very strong resume.
You know what's really funny about D1? I don't know if you saw it. I was watching, how D1 does their little X broadcast. What's really funny about what they posted on the website as opposed to what they did in that broadcast yesterday, OU was a 2 seed in the live stream. And then all of a sudden I look at the story and I'm like, 3 seed, what happened? It's just kind of weird, but that's how it is. But yeah, it's interesting. It's a big weekend, I think, for everyone. And I want to ask you, Zach, about Texas. We talk about the rotation being moved around and everything. How do you feel they've adjusted with the injury at the front of that rotation, moving everyone up? How do you feel like these guys have adjusted to their new role and that pressure that comes with them with now being a 1, 2, and 3 as opposed to a 2 and 3 in the rotations?
It's funny you say that. I don't think they've felt more pressure. I think if anything, it was honestly just bad timing because if you look at statistically the teams they've played over the last 3 weeks, A&M, big time rival, they've got elite pitching, right? Arkansas has got elite pitching and elite hitting. They're one of the, before they got beaten down at LSU, I had them as the number 1 team in the nation. They looked the spot, right? And then Florida's got a really unique ball club where they don't have a lot of power, but they just kind of make things happen. And it's the Kevin O'Sullivan magic. And then statistically from a pitching standpoint, they've got some elite arms. So it's kind of just bad timing with Texas, I think, is you were bound to hit that kind of barrier. But from a pitching standpoint with the rotation, I don't think it's affected them too much. Now, knowing who that third guy is, I think that's what they're working on this weekend to figure out. Is it a Cade Bing? Is it a Grayson Saunier? You can always roll out Max Grubbs. They know that for a fact. But again, they kind of want that luxury of having Max in the bullpen, knowing he can go give you 4 or 5 innings on a given night. You can use Volantis twice, right? So it's I don't get the feeling they've kind of changed their pressure or their motivations at all.
Zach, as we go into the series, you kind of referenced where Texas is, what they need to do to at least share the conference championship. You don't think that takes any pressure or burden off winning this series for the Longhorns because it's Oklahoma and Texas, right?
I don't think so. Honestly, I think the pressure kind of just got let off this past weekend against Florida. I think there was pressure to win it at home on Senior Day. I think they were kind of feeling that. And you heard that from the post game, right? The guys, yeah, we think we were pressing a little bit. We weren't taking our normal approach. Our 2-strike approach wasn't very good. And so they just didn't have the same energy that I think they normally would have. But going into Oklahoma, I think they've kind of relaxed and said, you know what? We know where we're at. We're comfortable. We know that we need one, right? Let's go kill one bird, and then we'll figure out what's left in the bush afterwards.
And Oklahoma would love nothing more than to deny Texas that right in Norman with a sweep. Randy, we talk about Oklahoma baseball a lot, where they're at, RPI, strength of schedule, I like, but this home crowd that watched LSU come in and sweep Oklahoma, coming off a sweep against Kentucky, they want to finish this thing off strong in Norman this weekend.
No doubt. I mean, I don't think it's just the fans. I think the team, you could just see that team last week, and it's not an excuse because a lot of teams were doing this. They were coming off finals, and that team, I knew something wasn't right with them when you're watching that game on Friday night, game one, and back to back, Sam Christian and Jason Watt make just really boneheaded errors that didn't go down as errors. And you're going, okay, Watt's one of the best center fielders out there. He makes all the plays, and he's making those plays. And it just felt like they were sleepwalking, at times through this past weekend. And I'm really interested to see a week off. And the one thing I love about this week and heading into conference tournament, you're a college baseball player, say this every year, and I want to get into Mike Rooney's tweet from last night from D1 as well. But you hear college baseball players tell you this is their favorite time of the year, not just because it's postseason, but because, hey, school's out, I've got to do one thing.
Yep.
I got to worry about showing up to the park and performing. And that's why I'm really interested to see in this week what the team and how they responded, after that day off on Monday and then Tuesday, Wednesday, out there on the field, not having to worry about anything and just getting back in the baseball groove. That's kind of the thing I'm ready to see and interested to see this weekend.
It's coming up quick, boys. We got first pitch tomorrow at 6:30. Zach, tell me if you kind of feel this about Texas. I thought even before they lost Ballou, even before the big Friday night stud Jared Spencer, they were playing kind of above themselves. They were really good and a national championship contender, but I always thought kind of that the peak was going to come for this team. I didn't think that would be due to injury, but it seems like the injuries on the tail end of maybe not being quite as elite as their record would have suggested might have caught up the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think it's I think two things are true, right? Their pitching is probably played above what they are talent-wise. I think their hitting is actually played far below what they are talent-wise. You look at a guy like Jalen Flores, who hit 18 home runs last season. He was hitting, 364 or so.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the same number. I mean, he's like 100 points less than he was last year. A guy like Will Gasparino, same power, not as many strikeouts, but just hasn't been able to put it together consistently. And so they haven't felt like they've gotten a rhythm recently. A-Rod or Adrian Rodriguez, when he went down the same weekend as Max Ballou, that next weekend, it felt like, okay, everything's okay. And then it felt like, ooh, our offense is kind of feeling the pressure, right? They're trying to have guys be the guy. They're having guys try to force the issue. And that's where I feel like things really started to come, not off the tracks necessarily, but that's where you talked about, like, they kind of struggled more. And so that's one of the things I think is interesting about this is if they get Max Ballou, and I'm not saying he's 100% by any means, but that's kind of a jolt to the hitting energy, right? Oh man, Max back in the lineup. The guy is here, right? Maybe that takes a little pressure off some of those guys like Flores. Maybe it takes pressure off some of the other guys, and they feel like they can play a little more free. So, and then Randy, you make a great point. This is the best time of the year for these players because they're not worried about finals. They've got one goal in mind, right? It's baseball, and it's only baseball. And it's not that they haven't been focused, but they got girlfriends, they got baseball, they got classes, they got all the other nonsense, and now it's just like, hey, we're here for a championship. That's all that matters. So
And when that runs out, it's lake trips with said girlfriend and time to enjoy the summer. So yeah, they're good either way. Randy, I don't know if you saw this, but when Texas was playing Florida, you had a certain player draw a walk and got very excited on this. It made
In
national.
the 8-1 deficit, yeah.
I kept seeing this everywhere, dude. What happened, and what's your take on this?
Me or Zach?
Anybody wants to
Go ahead, Zach.
I want to hear it.
So y'all are referencing Jonah Williams. The funny thing about Jonah Williams is if Rylan Galvan is the heartbeat and the soul of the team, right? He's the thing that makes the team go. His Robin, if he's Batman, his Robin is the 17-year-old two-way phenom in Jonah Williams, right? He's 17 years old. He turns 18, I think, in 3 days, actually. I mean, he's going to be turning 18 just this weekend. And Jonah Williams brings a very, very different mindset and energy to baseball, whereas typically baseball is very, just kind of, you want to stay within yourself, you want to respect the game and all that. He says, you know what? I'm going to turn the energy up to 10. I don't care what the situation is. I'm bringing the energy. He's on the top step, just getting things riled up and going. I don't mind it, right? Because at the end of the day, what is he doing? He's acting like himself, right? He's being the player that he's been all along. And when you start asking people to not be themselves, that can really affect your confidence. That can affect the way that you play the game. And so I don't think the coaching staff would ever tell him to not do that. I think they might say, hey, understand the larger scenario here where you're down 8-1.
Probably not the time to talk trash. Yeah.
But at the same time, like, if you're going to talk trash when you're winning,
that's classless, typical Texas stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I've got no issue with it. I kind of like it. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I don't mind it, but I'll say this.
Hang on, we got some guys in the comment. Gig'em Bart, which I assume is an A&M fan. Texas being one win away from taking the SEC is my worst nightmare. Okay, I can see that. And then
your worst nightmare should be going 0-3 against Missouri.
Yeah,
anybody in league play, that should be your worst nightmare.
Hey, Dave and I like to joke with him, Zach. I told Mike, Rooney, and Dave 3 weeks ago, and Mike even agreed with me a little. I said, Missouri's a dangerous team down the stretch. And when I was saying that, I thought going into a series, sneaking up and winning a game.
Yeah.
Never dreaming, they're going to go into College Station and sweep them out the door. I mean, we'll get your thoughts on it, and I know you're headed somewhere else with it, Dave, maybe, but that might have been Early's death knell. I mean,
guys, that was with a tournament to make the NCAA on the line. You lose at winless Missouri at home. I can't wrap my mind around that one.
Yeah, I don't know that should be. See, I'm going to probably be very different than most people. I don't think that should be the death knell of Early at A&M. He walked into maybe one of the toughest situations a coach could possibly walk into, other than inheriting a team in which every single player left and transferred out, right? Inheriting the number one team in the nation that has been built up to be a contender. I mean, that was supposed to be the year they were going to contend. They were a year too early last year in this College World Series, right? And so if you think about what they put together, this was supposed to be the year. And I'm not sure that any coach walks in there and is able to have the level of success that people anticipated. Now, to be fair, like, injuries, and he really, there's attitude issues with that team. I mean, you could see Mike Grahovic tweeting during a game about, if he stays, we stay. Like, that's not right. I mean, that's just, you're putting people in an impossible situation. But yeah, I thought they would win a game against Mississippi State this weekend.
Yeah,
I could have never imagined that they would beat A&M once, much less 3 games. I couldn't stop watching. It was like a train wreck that
it was.
I was like, don't worry, Texas, you're fine. I just want to see over here what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, Friday night I watched the debacle of Oklahoma, Kentucky, and I'm like, okay, what else is on ESPN? And I flip over and I see that game, and it's 6-3, and next thing I know, I'm watching the rest of that game because the 9th inning rolls around. I'm like, oh God, is the train that goes in the outfield actually going through the field? Because this is a full-fledged train wreck right now. And that's kind of what I knew. This is not good. And I'm on your same page, Zach. I don't think necessarily he should be gone. But we all know the itchy trigger finger some donors have down in that area, and you're kind of like, preseason number one, and you just lost to a team 3 times that hadn't won a game, and I'm kind of like, that's not good. Because I'll say this much: I think Early's got a chance to be a really good coach somewhere if
Yeah.
they do get rid of him, and that could be a diamond in the rough for somebody if they end up hiring him as an assistant and he quickly gets a head coaching job.
I was going to say, Zach, I get everything you were talking about. It was a tough situation with what he walked into, but you look at just the talent alone on that A&M club, and I can't defend what I just watched against Missouri, especially with what was on the line. So if I'm a donor, that's a tough pill to swallow, but I completely get what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I've people in the Texas press box can tell you I've been calling Missouri my favorite blood sport for the past like 3 weeks. And my stepdad lives in Columbia, Missouri, so I've got family in the area. I've been to Como 1,000 times, and I've been to that baseball field, and it's just, it was something else to watch this week, and it really was.
I mean, they're beyond bad. I wasn't aware till Oklahoma won it. That is a horrible program that does nothing right. I mean, overthrowing cutoff guys, not keeping guys on base, little league stuff, and to go down to College Station, just gig 'em, Bart. I'm sorry we went off on that tangent. We're going to get back to Oklahoma, Texas coming up. All right, been on about 30 minutes, boys. Let's go ahead and give our picks for this weekend. Zach, you're kind of the guest tonight. You want to go first?
Yeah, I think Oklahoma takes it with Kyson on the mound game one, assuming that Skip doesn't go do something crazy. But I think, Randy, to your point, they have to kind of go with him tomorrow night just to line up for the tournament in Hoover. I do think OU takes game one, but I think that, Texas has the wherewithal, if you call it, to come back and take the next 2 games to win the series.
I'm kind of with Zach. Whether it's tomorrow or it's game 3 when Texas has everything wrapped up as far as titles concerned, I think Oklahoma gets one this weekend and moves on. And I'm not saying they'll be satisfied with that, but I think a lot of this thing for all these teams involved, it's going to be like, do what you need to do to make yourself feel good about making the 64-team field, and then get ready for Hoover. Because, I mean, I think we're all not ready for this Hoover thing. And what I mean by that is, when was the last time you've seen a college baseball tournament that is single elimination all the way through? I mean, as crazy as we sit there and joke about Missouri being bad and they're bad, my God, all they have to do is beat everyone once. It's not like they knocked, let's say, Texas off in their first game if they were playing in the old school, and then they have to beat them twice later on in elimination. No, they get by a good team early. This tournament, I think, is going to be so wild, and it's already known for being wild to start with. You make it a single elimination all the way through, I don't even know what to think about next week.
Yeah, with a ton of great baseball teams, great programs in this. It's going to be fun to watch. Well, I mean, I made a bet with Zach preseason on this thing. I can't change it now. I got to stick with what I stuck with. I like Oklahoma's chances with Kyson Witherspoon against anybody, let alone whoever Texas can trot out tomorrow. So I like game one. I did say Malachi and Cade Crossland have been a little up and down this year with consistency. The thing is, if they get that win tomorrow night, they just need one of those 2 guys to pitch to the potential they can. And I love Oklahoma's chances to take 2 or 3. So I got to take Oklahoma to take 2 or 3 from your beloved Longhorns, and I'll take my steak medium rare afterwards.
The thing that gets me about Kyson is when he starts in SEC games, Oklahoma's only 5-4.
I know.
Like, you would think they'd have some crazy, like, actually, Cade Crossland has a better record of 6-3 when he gets starts. So like, it just
run support.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, both these teams, I was breaking them down today and looking at the stats and just kind of trying to get my mind around what I had seen throughout the season to this point. And I kept coming back to one thing. These teams are very close to each other when it comes offensively. One likes to run a lot more. One has a lot more power. But at the end of the day, what they rely on is get a guy on and get timely hitting. I mean, that's what their offense is, right? And so it'll be very interesting to see if those teams are able to generate that, because this past weekend they weren't. Oklahoma and Kentucky, they just could. They had guys on the pond. They couldn't bring them home. Texas, same thing. The amount of guys they've left on base, the number of bases loaded situations Texas has come up with the past 2 weeks and just come up empty is somewhat insane if you think about it. So yeah, it's a little crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a story of OU all year, right?
I was going to say I'll go one step further. Difference between Oklahoma winning this weekend or doing what they did against Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. It's Jackson Willits. I mean, he's been a non-factor for about 3 weeks now, and I'm not being mean about the kid, but he's just in that baseball slump, and they've kept him in the anywhere from 2 to 4 hole, and there's been multiple times over the last 3 weeks where he's come up and just really a bad at bat. I mean, all he needs is a deep fly ball to score a run or put the ball on the ground to the left side or the right side of the infield. And he's not making contact. If they can start getting the Jackson Willits that was playing about a month ago and hitting, this team's lethal offensively because of like what you said, Zach, running the bases and, just causing the chaos, the mantra that they want to go by.
Yeah.
But when it's only Easton doing it and you can kind of pitch around Easton because you feel pretty good about being able to get Jackson on, that changes that whole dynamic in that part of the order. And time again, it seems like those two are coming up back to back, and you see teams kind of pitch around Easton, and Easton knows Jackson's not doing much around him. And I feel like he's reached for a few balls, where he's just like, I got to put it in play because I don't know if Jackson's going to. Or at least that's what it looks like, and that's what it seems like, that he's starting to press because he knows I better get something done because I don't know if Jackson is.
And so to me, it reminds me of the Oklahoma team a couple years ago where I'm trying to remember the guy that was hitting all the big bombs for y'all, but you had a guy kind of like Easton where you knew that he had power at any time.
Right.
But you had a couple of guys that didn't hit for a ton of average, but they got hot at the end of the season. But they were guys
Peyton Graham,
there you go.
Yeah.
And they were guys that you knew they were going to get on base and move over. And it's like Dawson, it's Willits. And if Oklahoma has a couple of those guys going, they're really hard to beat, to your point, offensively, because that chaos offense, it works. Like, it puts a lot of pressure. But yeah, they just haven't been able to get it done. It's a little befuddling at times.
Here recently, I mean, earlier in the season, Oklahoma was doing exactly what we're talking about, and that's getting timely hitting when they needed it. Really conference play, it's been a struggle. And Randy, to your point, in this conference, you have to have your dudes be dudes. Coming into the year 1 through 9, you knew Easton Carmichael, Jackson Willits, Jason Walk has emerged. So when that's kind of it on guys you rely on in that lineup, you're exactly right. They know what Easton Carmichael doesn't like to hit, and they can pitch him accordingly. Same with Jason Walk. That falls to Jackson Willits. And when he's up with the bases loaded and 1 down, they can't have him popping up or striking out. It's that simple. I hate to be that blunt. They need these 3 guys to be their guys 1 through 9, because outside of that, there's just not a lot of consistency you can rely on if you're Oklahoma. But it all falls back to Jackson Willits, Randy. He's got to be the guy that everybody thought he was.
And that's the reason why just getting Dayton Taki back in for some pinch hits this weekend is so crucial for Oklahoma going on into postseason, because he's at least that guy. If Jackson's not doing it, that's why, even though they ended up losing the series to Georgia at Georgia, they won that Friday night game. It was because he was in there and he was 4-4-4. And even though Jackson hadn't been performing, all of a sudden you had to, give Jackson a few better pitches because, behind Jackson's Dayton Taki, and it makes everyone better. And so that's why I think they just got to get him back in there, start facing some live pitching. And maybe it's not this weekend, but it's next weekend and headed into the tournament, where this offense we get to see more of what this offense was earlier in the year.
Well, Zach, if you got anything to wrap up with, I'll let you cut out of here and go get some dinner, eat that Bobcat behind you. It looks pretty tasty, whatever you want to do tonight.
No, I think it's going to be a great series. It'll be interesting to see how Texas performs, because the last couple trips up to Norman have been pretty productive for Texas. I was looking at it, and I was actually kind of surprised, because you would think that on the road against Oklahoma, they maybe not have as much success, but something about that ballpark typically has brought out the best in Texas, and it'll be interesting to see if, again, kind of the timing of everything just kind of comes together for them this weekend. So
yeah, it's been like the team's reversed. Oklahoma plays better in Austin, and Texas plays better in Norman.
It really is. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, Oklahoma went down and swept Texas, I think, in Austin the last time that they played down there. 2 years ago, was it?
2 years ago, yeah.
First time in a very long time, maybe ever. But all right, Zach Sims, Zach at the Dish. I will. I've got high school baseball to call tomorrow and Friday, but I will see you on Saturday in Norman.
That's right, buddy. I'll
See,
expect that steak to be very, very medium rare, trending toward the rare side. And yeah, we'll make sure you get a good cut now. I don't want any third-rate Oklahoma stuff here.
Just bring Bebo up with you from Texas, and we'll call it good. Zach, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Appreciate you, my friend.
All right,
Thanks, Zach.
Randy, Zach, always with good insight as far as baseball goes. I'm fired up for this one, man. I can't wait to see what happens in Norman. Oklahoma needs to win tomorrow night with Kyson on the bump. It's that simple.
No doubt. I mean, it's the game. I mean, they start out 1-0, and you feel decent about them maybe picking up one of the next two games, and that's the way it's been for OU all year long. Even though I'm saying that, I mean, it feels like in the SEC series that they've won, Kyson's lost, and then they come back and win the next two. So I don't know, but it definitely gives them an advantage. You just got to win one of the next two to win the series. They do that would be their sixth series win in SEC play, and you go the opposite. Let's talk one of the top teams in the SEC, Tennessee. I brought up this stat to you this week. They've lost 4 out of 5 home series.
Crazy.
I mean,
Oklahoma would
they're still really good.
They beat Texas.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. They've done, for the most part, what you need to do. Take care of home field, and so that's where it gives you a good feeling that hopefully Oklahoma can come get this series this weekend, because it's not like the series they've won have been against bad teams. I mean, they beat Vandy, top 25, probably a top 8 national seed after beating Tennessee last weekend. They beat Ole Miss, who, is top 25 team again this week. They beat some good teams at home. It's not like they're beating Missouri and South Carolina in Norman. So, all that being said, go out and do what you need to do, and you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I mean, over and above getting the tournament, which, a lot of dialogue with, I think they're pretty good. If they win one, sleep well. But kind of over and above that, get back in the rhythm of playing good baseball. You were just swept. You want to get that taste out of your mouth. Get back to doing what you do. And that is, this team is so much better playing with a lead. I don't care if it's a run, 2 runs, but if they get behind, they can't really crank that chaos thing up. They can't really risk swiping bags, and things become a lot more condensed. So get out with a lead early. That's something we just haven't seen from this offense a lot.
Well, with that being said, opposite of last week, the one thing they need out of the pitching staff is shut down innings. They had a lead in the first 2 games, and it felt like every time they got the lead, they gave it right back that following half inning, no matter who was on the mound. So you got to get that shut down inning just to at least give your offense that confidence, keep the pitching staff's confidence and everything like that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, get the lead, play chaos. And I've preached about it, and we've talked about it time and time again. That's your mantra. You got to play with it. You got to go out there with your hair on fire. And I don't mean be stupid.
Sure.
But it was just kind of like, was it the Saturday game, Dave, where there was a ball hit to the gap, and I don't know how close it was. We weren't there. We were watching on TV.
Bases loaded. It should have cleared the bases.
Yeah. Hey, I go back to the old days of Sonny Galloway being the head coach at Oklahoma, and they were very risky with guys going to home. And I fully agree with this philosophy, even though talent level's gone up. These guys are college kids. I'm going to put the pressure on that outfielder to hit the relay man, to then hit the catcher with perfect strikes, because they're college kids. Odds are it's not going to be perfect. My guy just has to run straight through and slide into home plate. I want to see if they can make that play. And if they do, you know what? Congratulations. You got me out at home, especially to the point of, like Zach was talking about, we've talked about, when this team has struggled with getting that clutch hit, that hit with guys on base, you got 1 run in, you risk it. Unless the infielder's already got that ball when he's touching third,
I don't think that was
and it wasn't. You send him. Well, and that's where it's like, you got to play that way.
Especially if that's your entire premise. That's how your team is built. You rely on speed. You rely on eventually the other team is going to make a mistake and you'll capitalize. You send a runner from third, that's going to put pressure. That's what you do. That's how you're built. So, I mean, I didn't get it when I saw it, and I think that would have drawn Oklahoma closer in the game. And then to your point, on Saturday, I think maybe Sunday, the last game, Oklahoma fights and claws and ties it at 2. And guess what? The very next half inning,
Sunday.
back home runs given up. So it's kind of a bit of bad from both right now. You've got the offense struggling, but when they finally do something, the pitching staff can't go out and get them back in the dugout. So, I mean, they need everything to fire on all cylinders this weekend.
That's why I'm interested to see this weekend. I mean, I've seen it, whether it's OU playing Bedlam out of finals or just somebody else. You know, I've seen it time and time again. A lot of times, teams coming out of finals week tend to struggle. Now, I don't know if Kentucky had finals. Sometimes that happens where maybe Kentucky's finals are this week or they were the week before, and you'll see that team, and that's when it really tends to happen. When you see those teams in this time of year, whether they've already had finals or their finals are the following week, and you're coming out of finals because you didn't get to practice together. You really didn't get to do anything. And you'll see that kind of rustiness, which is what last week to me looked like a team that was rusty, didn't have a clue what was going on, and they were just out there going through the motions. That's why I'm really interested to see this weekend how this team comes out and plays. Because I'll say this, if they come out and play the way they did against Texas, whether they make the field of 64 or not at that point in time, if they play against Texas the way they did against Kentucky, it's a bad omen for how the rest of the season is going to go with the SEC tournament and NCAA, because that almost looked like a team, I'm not going to say that didn't care, but that was half asleep.
Well, and it's the opposite of what they should have been, right? You just get a big series win at home against Ole Miss. It'd send you on the right trajectory as you close out the season. That's what was most disappointing to me about watching that team in Lexington. You think that you're going to sustain some success and start to build towards the end of the year. I could have accepted losing one of 3, right? That happens on the road, no issue. But to go get swept is kind of alarming, and that's why this weekend to me is going to be very telling. I brought up the C word earlier today up here, that the late season collapse that you want to avoid, that it can happen for whatever reason. I don't care how well you're coached, what you tell the kids to do. It's a funk a team gets in right now. They're coming off 3 losses in a row. This weekend will tell us if it's that or it was just a bad weekend. It's still a really good baseball team with more to play.
Yeah, I mean, because I'll say this, as much as, like, it's still weird D1 has them as a 3, because I'm telling you yesterday it was a 2 in the live chat, but which blew my mind. But anyway,
I got a lot of mentions on that, like, wait, a 3? I'm like, that's what it says, I promise.
Yeah, it was weird, because I'm telling you, go back and watch the stream. They were a 2, and I think they were going to Oregon State as a 2, and now I'm like, wait, they're a 3 at TCU? I'm so confused. But regardless, they go out and win 2 out of 3. They go out and somehow sweep Texas, which, again, I don't think they're going to do. But freakier things have happened, right? They go sweep Texas. All of a sudden, it's kind of funny. We go from, they're a 3 to, let me tell you, Dave, they're in a spot to now be, hey, win 2 in Hoover. They might be hosting.
Yeah.
Because, their RPI is already not going to drop if they lose games this weekend. If you go beat the number, I think Texas is number 3 in the RPI 2-3 times, they'll probably be up at least to 20 going into Hoover in the RPI.
Then 2 wins.
And if they get 2 wins, and then they get 2 wins at Hoover. And the key right now, here's the sneaky key for Oklahoma. You and I were talking about it. Mississippi State, they set at 32 right now.
Yeah.
If they win a game or 2 and they can get in that top 30, that's only going to improve that RPI more. And so that's why I say I'm not worried about them getting in, because I think a lot of things outside of their control are working in their favor to just improve that RPI alone too, if they just get 1. But it's just funny how this SEC is all jumbled up. And I do think it's funny how some of the national people, I don't think have looked around and seen, let's take a couple of fields, like the men's basketball tournament, the women's softball tournament, how well respected the SEC has been. They get all but 1 team in the men's basketball tournament.
Sure.
They get 7 of the top 8 national seeds and 9 hosts overall in the softball tournament. That's why I say 13 wins. It's always gotten teams in before from the SEC. If this doesn't get them, if I'm Sankey and I'm the rest of the SEC, if every one of my teams that gets 13 right now don't make it, I'm livid, because I'll be like, wait, we added 2 really good teams that made our conference even better, and we're going to get punished. That's what makes no sense.
I think Rooney and those guys have a bit of recency bias as it goes to Oklahoma and Texas being newbies in the SEC, and they're still kind of viewing them through that lens and not really encompassing the respect as a whole the league gets that Oklahoma's now a part of. So they're going to get that same treatment. And it's funny that you brought up, yeah, it's kind of a week-to-week thing in this league, how fast things change. A week ago, we're talking about, yeah, go take 2 or 3 against Kentucky, take 1 against Texas, and you're probably going to host. Now I go on the radio today and the host thing, what's the formula for it? It's a long shot, but like you said, crazier things have happened. They come out and sweep Texas. They win 1 or 2 in Hoover. Guess what? They're right back in that host conversation. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's not out of the realm of possibilities. I'm fascinated to see where Oklahoma and Texas both, and I mean, Texas, they're going to host. They're one of the best teams in the country. As I told Zach, do I think they can win the national championship? I don't, Randy, but I don't really see that team out there in college baseball, period, anywhere.
I do. I kind of do. I think I like Zach. I think Arkansas. I know they lost last week, and LSU fans are fair and will bash me. I mean, that was
with
in
Arkansas,
LSU.
they just have to prove they can do it with Van Horn. Then I
Right. And I agree. Yeah, you're right. They've got to do it. But
Right.
they have, this may be the first team I can remember in Arkansas that's got the pitching and the offense.
I agree with
And
that.
especially on neutral fields, like when you get to Omaha, not going to Baton Rouge, not playing in Fayetteville. I think that evens up a lot of things for this Arkansas team. And that's why I really like them. And I'll say this much, in my opinion, if Van Horn doesn't get it done this year, I don't know if he does get it done.
I mean,
And I'm not, I mean, to your point, the reason I say that, there's not another team out there. There's not a Tennessee like last year that they're, like, oh, they could run into this team or they could run into that team. There's a lot of other really good teams, but there's not that murderer's row team. They're like, hey, as long as they stay on this side of the bracket, I think they can make it. No, I mean, they're the closest thing to that murderer's row team, and if they don't do it this year, I'm being serious. I don't know if they ever do it.
Well, I mean, you just said it. With Van Horn, it's been one or the other for so many years. They'll have elite pitching, but the 1 through 9 in there. Now, this year, they have a complete team. They're very good, and I'm with you. I think they're an odds-on favorite to win it. But as far as being like the old Wake Forest team or Tennessee when they had that glowing record, just that juggernaut, I don't see it in college baseball, and I think that's going to make for a fascinating regionals and tournament. And Omaha, the field should be ecstatic that there's not that monster in the SEC this season.
I fully agree, and I think that's what's going to make it fun with it being a single elimination tournament in Hoover. You're not running into that one big monster, and as good as I say Arkansas is, they've been beat this year. They get the wrong draw and they lose early. All of a sudden that opens it up, and that's why I was joking, and I don't think it's going to happen. But if I'm Missouri and I just went and took 3 at College Station, I'm feeling really good about myself going, hey, look, before when it's double elimination, field, I think I have 0% chance to go win it and knock somebody off twice to go win the SEC title and get that automatic bid. But in a single elimination field, if I'm Missouri, I'm going, I'm looking at my players, I'm looking at everyone going, hey guys, we just won 3 in a row in College Station. We don't have to beat any one team twice. We just roll the ball out there. And that's where I think Hoover's going to get funky. Whether it's them, whether it's South Carolina, who I think Molinari's been awful this year, and they've struggled, but they've got a lot of offensive weapons. You just get hot at the right time, it's going to be weird. I don't like single elimination. I don't like single elimination.
His Missouri Tigers, your fascination with Missouri down the stretch is tickling me. It's humoring me.
I hate single elimination tournaments because
it's going to be fun.
It's not what baseball is made of, and that's why I hate it. It's like, and that's why I'm like, anything can happen. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, Dave, did you happen to see the tweet from D1 Baseball with Rooney having his change for how baseball should go?
Oh, Lord, I missed it. What did he say?
No, I mean, just like season should start February 28th. I think it was a month. Then basically the first week of what regionals are now would be like conference tournament week. Everything gets pushed back, and basically the World Series would be on July 4th.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I love that idea. And what drove me nuts, I wanted to beat half the people, and some of them were media members, Well, there goes the off time for everyone that covers sports. All right, I get that. I've worked in media. It's a 12-month-a-year job. You know, there is no off time, and they were talking about the SIDs. Guess what, SIDs? Don't be fucking lazy. You know, most of you just work that job. That's what you do. It's what's good. And then the other one that drove me nuts, people criticize, well, that's the death of summer league. I want to go, you know, the only reason most summer leagues exist, it's because college baseball ends when it ends. So
Sure.
those players are looking for something else. Yeah, it's going to be the death. But also look at the big picture for college baseball. You move it where it ends when it does, right, with what Rooney's proposal would be. You move it to then, Dave, all of a sudden, college baseball for a ton of schools, there's already some that it, you know, maybe breaks even or makes some money. A lot more become revenue sports, which makes college baseball more viable as, you know, a big time sports on college campuses.
Right. And that they're trying to, we know over the last couple of years, really grow the sport. And you have to think outside the box to do that. A lot to unpack there. I know that Oklahoma's World Series run, I was there the first week. I think you showed the second. It's already hotter than the surface of the sun in June in Omaha, so July is not going to make that much of a difference. July 4th being the actual World Series would, to me, that would be everything American college baseball wrapped up into one. I love that idea. Summer leagues, who cares? You're right. These guys will be playing college baseball. They won't care if there's no summer league to go play in. So I love that idea. I think that people should look at it and all kinds of different ideas to help grow the sport. It can't get stagnant. I love where it's gone. I love what ESPN has done. ESPN Plus, you know, broadcasting so many games, but they can't get to a certain point and go, all right, we're good. They've got to keep pushing with college baseball.
Think about it. I mean, there's teams every year. Michigan made the World Series a few years ago. You know, Northeastern's one of the top teams looking at a 2 seed this year up in the Northeast. If all of a sudden you move the season back like that, that makes those schools potentially true contenders, which back to your point about growing the game, if college baseball could have a major factor every year,
Yes.
like, I mean, look at Lincoln, Nebraska. Haymaker Park in Nebraska is really nice. They get really good fan support, but it's hard to be continuously a contender with what they have to deal with weather every year. But if all of a sudden you move it back where February 28th is the start of the season, instead of being on the road for a month, those teams go on the road. Yeah, they're going to have to be on the road because it's still too early to play at home February 28th.
But they'll do it.
But now it's 2 weeks.
Sure.
It's not 4 weeks. All of a sudden, when the weather starts getting nice up there, it's not their last home series of the year. They've got another month left to go.
Well, and that helps even the field. It's not fair to me when you start talking about these teams in the North and the Northeast having to compare their records against teams in the Midwest and the West Coast this time of year with what they have to deal with weather-wise to start the season. So, I mean, as long as that exists, it's never going to be an even playing field, and that's what you want in college athletics.
Amen. And I just think it makes that much more fun. And I'm telling you, and I'll say, I think a school like Oklahoma potentially could become at least break even to a revenue sport. And it goes back to the revenue sharing.
Yeah.
Everyone wants baseball players to make more money, right? If all of a sudden those sports become revenue sports, guess what happens? The revenue share for baseball goes up a little.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it makes sense.
It does. I'll go check it out. Anything Runes, has to say about college baseball, idea-wise, I dig. That guy just gets it. Well, I love it when he joins our show. Love the broadcast on ESPN. But, Randy, look, big series for Oklahoma. Get back on track. Get back into playing good baseball. It's the most important time of the year, and beat the Texas Longhorns at home.
Next week starts the best 2 weeks in sports. Super regionals are good, too. I'll go the best 3 consecutive weeks on the sports calendar, with conference tournaments usually starting Tuesday, regionals followed by super regionals. Literally, I will be glued to my TV in my office. You know my office, it's got that TV hanging over my desk. Yeah, I will have it up Tuesday, not just watching the SEC tournament, but bouncing around. And it'll be that way for about the next 3 weeks. It's the greatest time of year. I know everyone loves March Madness, and it's fun and all. But to me, nothing compares to the college baseball postseason.
No, it's going to be a lot of fun. Watch party in Randy's office coming up. I wanted to jump back to the sports media thing. Having now been in it a couple of years, it's full time. I get guys like Patrick Dunn and SID at Oklahoma wanting to have a month off or so.
And they'd still get a month. You've got to make the World Series not to be there. I mean,
That's
not
right.
to get that
And even
month
if
off.
you do, you still have 4 weeks to get to the lake, do whatever
Yeah.
you want to do before you're back on
Anyway,
the clock. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up, Randy. Good stuff, man. And I will see you this weekend probably.
Have fun in those baseball games. You got 4 tomorrow.
Let's go. I need to start resting my voice, man.
For Oklahoma fans, 5A is what you're carrying.
That's right.
And I know for sure Duncan's got 2 players that's in the 5A tournament that are going to Oklahoma. Pryor's in it, Carl Albert. I can't think of anyone else really that's got players, but if you're up in that area and you go to the 5A and you're an OU fan, also go over and watch the 6A tournament because 2026 pitcher Sevian Sims from, I think it's Edmond Santa Fe, he's an OU commit, highly thought of. I don't know if we'll see him in Norman because he may get drafted too high, but there's a lot of talent over the next 2 years in the state of Oklahoma. And even though they're not OU, Ethan Holiday and Stillwater, they're up in Tulsa, and he's going to be right up there with Jackson Willits in the first round in the draft here in a couple of months. So, yeah, a lot of good baseball to check out in the Tulsa 4A, 3A, and 2A down here in the metro area.
Yeah, that's right. Eli Willits had his game last week with Fort Cobb Brox. He went 0 for 3, hit the ball hard, but his at-bats were fun because the 15 Major League scouts that were there would all line the left field line with their cameras, taking videos. It was a sight to see, man, for a guy that went 0 for 3. But you can see the talent. The kid is a freak.
For people that don't know the scouting game, Dave, at this point in the season, those are what we like to call cross-checkers, probably. And those are the guys that may be a scout somewhere else or go around the country, and they're local scout for the Marlins or whatever teams that we like this kid, They kind of come in towards the end to do one last check to go, yeah, that's right. Dave's got a good one there. I think this is one we need to move up our draft board. If I had to bet, 13 of those 15 were probably cross-checkers for other teams.
Well, there were a lot of them there, and it was fun to watch. And you're right. Duncan and Durant tomorrow night, I think, the nightcap. Duncan with 2 Oklahoma commits, Eli Ramirez, and somebody else. But, check us out on the Franchise 2 mobile app. And, we'll have you covered balls to the wall, high school baseball the next 3 days. For Randy Heights, I'm Dave Myrick. This has been Red River North on Ghost Channel. You guys have